John, obviously a big one in Tuscaloosa for Texas, and we really enjoyed watching you checking out your breakdown of everything. Let's dig into the Quinn Ewers thing that you were able to see in your mind, based on what you were looking for. What kind of step did he take Saturday night?
Well, first of all, as it pertains to the video, I appreciate everybody that watched it. I appreciate you guys for sharing it. Jeff put it on Orangebloods. I mean, that was awesome. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, I'm sorry about the volume. It was 6:30 in our team hotel, and I didn't want to wake people up. Talking about Quinn Ewers. So I'm trying to be as quiet as I possibly can as I'm doing it. So I apologize about the volume on that. But I went into that game not totally sure. Like, okay, what kind of Quinn Ewers are we going to see? Because against Rice, I felt like there were some throws he left on the table. And I'm like, all right, well, what are we going to see? And I felt like, and this is going to sound crazy, the very first play I picked out was actually a scramble. And it was on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6 early in the game. And he didn't see anything he liked and just ran up, dove, got the first down. And I've said this a lot about mobile quarterbacks, that I don't mind them running, especially early. If they get a good view at everything, maybe they're looking at man, maybe they're looking at zone, but they, especially if it's man, if they got their back to him and you get outside the pocket, you can go pick up the 5 yards, go get the 5 yards. And, I'd rather see him slide the other way. But look, I played baseball for 18, 20 years, whatever it was. I could hardly slide forward. I always had to dive when I slid. So I kind of get it. Either way, he did it intelligently. And I thought what that did was it bought him another set of downs. And I felt like that run gave him a little bit of confidence. So you pick up the first down, it gets you a little bit of confidence. And then all of a sudden you get down in the red zone and he throws very precise down in the red zone with throws that when you watch them initially, you're like, that's not a hard throw. A lot of people think that's not a hard throw. The throw that he makes to Worthy right there in the end zone where Worthy runs that kind of return route, the Julian Edelman route from the Super Bowl, where he runs hard inside and then breaks back out. That is so hard for a corner to cover. And McKinstry actually played it pretty well. And, I mean, that ball is on the money. It is a perfectly thrown ball, and Worthy doesn't catch it. But that's when I thought, okay, this is starting to look a little different. And then I'm like, all right, let's start to see if some of those things click. And then they started to click. And then he hit some of the deep balls. And I felt like Sark dialed some things up for him where the read is not too difficult, but you still got to make the right read. And then he hit that moonshot to Worthy for the touchdown, which is it was everything you wanted on that play because it came right to fruition. They ran the dig from one side. They ran Worthy on the skinny post from the other. And he's just got to read number two, the safety in the middle of the field. And when he broke on who's number 2 for Texas? Is that Cook?
Yes.
When Cook turns on the dig and Downs breaks, as soon as he started down, you could see Ewers like, I'm going deep, which he should have. That's the right read. And then he threw the perfect pass, which gets Worthy in the end zone. I thought, okay, I'm watching a different guy tonight. This is a different guy that we're seeing. How much longer can it stay this way? And it went the entire game. That confidence went to a different level. He challenged McKinstry on the fade to Mitchell down the sideline. He was just dialed in at that point. The deep ball was on point. His intermediate stuff was thrown with sauce, and he stayed in the pocket when he needed to. There are times in quarterbacks, and I hear Andre Ware say this on our broadcast a lot. We talk about this. Quarterbacks will leave the pocket for no reason. But I felt like Quinn stayed in the pocket because that was the right thing to do to let things develop and then rip it. And he ripped a few. You saw the arm strength. You saw it. But it felt like I was watching a quarterback whose confidence was growing with every single throw. And it really was the throw to Mitchell down the sideline. It didn't result, I think, on that drive in any points. But the throw to Mitchell down the sideline was middle of the field closed, safety in the middle of the field. You get man on the outside. That's where you're supposed to throw the ball, but you're challenging the number 1 corner in the country. And he went right at him, and he dropped it into a 6-inch bucket, and then Mitchell goes up and makes a play. That's what we wanted to see from Quinn Ewers last year. Then he got hurt, lost a little confidence. Mechanics were all askew. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Quinn Ewers is all of a sudden a masterful technician with the way he does everything, his footwork and all, but it's better. And he's got such great arm strength that he can put a ball into a tight spot. it felt like that was the Quinn Ewers that we've been wanting to see and that I've been wanting to see. And I loved it and I also hated it because it then complicates where do I put him in my quarterback rankings, because that quarterback is no worse than top 3. It's just I got to see that often in the next few games. You know, when it gets tight for Texas again, can he do that? But it was so great to see that from him in Tuscaloosa on the road, tough environment. And he got great help from his offensive line. Those offensive line was very good. Although they're very good, gave him time. And we're perfect, but they gave him time to throw. And the running game was just enough that in the third, fourth quarter, when they needed some key runs, they got him. And that really, I think, helped Quinn out. But make no mistake, the reason Texas went in there, 2 reasons. One, that the trenches were absolutely dominated by Texas, and Quinn Ewers was the Quinn Ewers we wanted to see. That's why Texas went in there and dominated that game.
John, real quick on those deep balls. I'm just curious. I've had former NFL quarterbacks tell me that moon ball is crap. And I've had some say it's a great throw. It's exactly the way you want to do it. It's funny because in week 1 they miss on the deep throws, and Ewers shows up at the Monday press conference and described what he was trying to do, and that didn't come off, where he runs Worthy out of bounds. He doesn't quite connect with a couple of underthrows. But on Monday of last week, he said, like, I'm okay with what I was doing because that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to throw the ball up in a way that allows the wide receivers to make adjustments to it and run underneath it and catch it. It comes off on Saturday. So I'm curious, from an NFL standpoint, I don't feel like we always see that throw a lot, although you showed it in your breakdown. It's very similar to what Trevor Lawrence did. I think it was against the Chargers last year. As he still tries to figure out consistently how to throw the deep ball, is that acceptable? Is that what the NFL wants to see? Are they okay with that methodology of trying to complete the deep ball?
Here's the way I look at it. Did Worthy or Mitchell have to slow down on either one of those deep balls?
Not on Saturday.
Point made. There it is. If your guy can run through the deep ball and leave the defender and run through the deep ball, then what's the issue? Who cares how high you threw it? Your guy is sprinting down the field. You let it out there. Your guy doesn't have to slow down. And if he's got ball skills to make the adjustment to make the catch, then what are you bitching about? Holy cow. I mean, we're now going to start griping about, well, the ball was too high. This ain't major league. You're sitting out with the fans like, no, it's too high. No, it's too hard. I mean, you've all seen that major league where they're like, oh, you know, and then one guy goes, who gives a damn? It's a home run. That's exactly the point. Who cares how high you have to throw it to get it out there? You have to learn how to throw to your receiver group. And I don't care how great your arm is or how weak your arm is. It doesn't matter to me. Then if you're running a deep route and your receiver doesn't have to stop, he's got the guy beat. He's on his hip. He tracks him, and the ball is coming down, and he doesn't have to break stride. Like, who cares? Where you get worried is when a guy has to break stride. Like, all right, come on, and then the defender can get back in phase. I don't know why anybody has any qualm or issue. The first one, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, man, that's a moon ball. But as I'm seeing it come down, I'm like, that's a touchdown. Like, we were watching it in a restaurant in Baltimore the first half. And as he caught it, I'm like, wow. And then I had no issue with it. It looks different because it was such a moon ball, but so what? If your guy doesn't have to slow down, if he has tracked that defender and he has gotten in front of him, and now that guy's on his hip and he doesn't have to slow down and catch the ball, then why is there a complaint? That's the biggest crock of you-know-what ever. I mean, look, if you can't watch Quinn Ewers and go, that dude's got an arm and he can throw it. And the thing about it is, the reason he threw it that high was to give his guy Worthy an opportunity to go get it so that there wasn't pressure on him. He could throw it clean, and his guy could run through the catch. Same thing to Mitchell. He ran through the catch. He didn't want him to slow down. That's nonsense, man. NFL guys, they were like, well, like, it's a joke. That's a joke if somebody has an issue with that. I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny to watch quarterbacks critique other quarterbacks because sometimes they're ridiculous.
That's insane. If I have ever been, I have seen the deep ball thrown so many times. I mean, the best I saw was before everything went south for Deshaun Watson. That dude knew the exact type of deep ball to throw, and he had to know because he had Will Fuller 4-3 on the outside. You have to learn that with your guys. Like, you know what? If that's worthy, I got to let this thing go. I got to let it go. If that's Mitchell, maybe you don't let it go with as much because, you know, Worthy's probably a hair faster than Mitchell. But you got to learn how to throw to your guys. If you throw to a tight end, you might have to give them a little more time. You might have to hang in the pocket a little bit more. There are things that you have to learn as you're going through it as a quarterback. But I saw Ewers throw 3 different styles of deep balls, and they were all complete. What? I don't understand, because then all of a sudden we're going to get mad at Quinn because he's going to throw in 75 yards as far as he can. He's going to overthrow the guy. Oh, look at him overthrow the deep. Like, stop it. Stop it. Those are the perfect balls to throw on those particular downs. And that, to me, is like a pitcher knowing how to change speeds with the four-seamer, change up, you know, throwing it different ways. He's going to get different movement on it. That's what Ewers did in a deep ball. Man, now I'm fired up. I mean, look, I really get fired up about football, but when I hear something like that, that just really, it ticks me off because it just shows that people putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable, man. He completed deep balls all night in different styles. To me, that's huge. That's like having 3 or 4 different pitches in baseball. All right, I'm done venting. Sorry, guys.
That's beautiful. No, that's good. That is good. And John, it really goes along with last week. We were talking about confidence level with the fans. What's your confidence level with Quinn? And then we're re-asking this week. It fascinates me because it is an important relationship, just like in a regular relationship. Trust is the big deal. Do the fans trust their quarterback? I felt like a lot of Texas fans were still trying to find that trust. So this week, after watching the film you did, this is a fan base that remembers Oklahoma last year, 49-0. But then they remember the game in Stillwater, winds blowing, balls spraying all over the place. How much trust would you tell them you feel like they can have in Quinn as they get towards the other big games coming on this schedule?
Sure. There's a level of prove it. There's no doubt. Because after you watch the Rice game, you're kind of like, I don't know. But then you watch the Alabama game and you're like, oh, boy. So, yeah, there's a consistency that I think, if I'm a fan, I'm sitting there going, all right, I'm about there. Don't burn me again because then I'm out. And I think it's kind of the same as, you know, as an analyst in some sense looking at it. Like, don't burn me again. I've seen it. We've all seen it now. We know you can do it. You know, it's like if you have kids, right? And all of a sudden you come home from a trip and the kids have cleaned the house, you know, because they're trying to help out. And you're like, okay, nice. Do that again. And then you come home from the next trip and they're like, the house is a mess. Like, wait a second. Well, why did you do it that time and not this time? You proved you can do it. Now go out and do it again. And I think that's the next hurdle, not only for Quinn, but for a lot of quarterbacks to earn that trust. And I think the trust level between a quarterback and his fan base is there's a fine line. Now think about Caleb Williams at USC. Those fans kind of know what they're going to see week in and week out. They know, look, if I go to the game, Quinn Ewers is going to throw Caleb Williams is going to throw for 4 touchdowns, and it's going to be a show. I've seen that every single week. You know, when Johnny was at A&M, you kind of got the same feeling. Even though Johnny might have partied all week, on Saturday, they had trust. He was going to show up, and he was going to play and play at a high level. I don't know that Quinn's all the way there with that yet. Where it's really going to show is when they play a team that they should house pretty well. Does he go out there and just make quick work of that team and show the things that he did at Alabama he's building on, and not by, you know, or just going through the motions to get through this game and saving them for Oklahoma or saving them for Oklahoma State or saving them for the NFL or whatever. No. That's the performance you got to see every week. So I understand. I actually understand from both sides of it. C.J. Stroud actually talked about this when he got to Houston. He said, look, being an Ohio State quarterback, you know, you're the most discussed individual in sports in the state. And he stopped himself and said, well, other than LeBron. And I was like, which is true. And I think it's the same. It's the same in the state of Texas. University of Texas quarterback is going to be discussed often. Now there's a Cowboys quarterback that's going to get discussed all the time. So maybe he's behind him. But other than that, everybody's going to poke holes in everything that Quinn does. So the only answer that he can have is each week go out there and say, okay, here are the things I did well at Alabama. I'm going to do those same things. What are the things I didn't do well against Alabama? Okay, these couple of things. So let's work at that during the week, and let's go master it this week against, University of Concordia State at New Mexico. Let's go out and do that this week and master that. And then what's next? Okay, well, I didn't do this. Now I got to. It's the consistent level that you have to get to as a quarterback thinking of the next level. You got to get your game to such a level so that when you do transform or move on to the NFL, your game is ready to transform with you. There aren't these things holding you back that you could have mastered in college, but you haven't. Master them now. And once you master them, you'll have that consistency. And then in November, in weeks 10, 11, 12, whatever, the Longhorn fan base is going to go, you know what? He's been showing it to us every single week. I'm on board. Now, you guys obviously know both of your fan bases. They're never always going to be on board. But you can get a lot more people on your side, the ones that kind of sit on the fence and say, you know what? I'm riding with him because he has shown that consistency. He has shown the maturity. He made all those changes in the offseason, and they're paying off. And it's paying off each and every week. And I think about the people that buy tickets to games. And I think about them a lot of times when I think about the NFL, but college too. They buy a ticket. For some people, it might be the only time they go to a game. And they want to see that guy that day the same way they saw him against Alabama. That's what's going to get some people in I want to go see Ewers. Maybe some people were planning a road trip at some point. Like, no. If that's the guy that's playing, I want to go see him. And I know players can't quite think about it that way, but sometimes I think about that. Look, you got to get to that level. You got to know that there are people out there coming to see you at your best. Go out there and be at your best. And to be there, that's when Monday through Friday counts the biggest. That's when you got to put that work in so that Saturday you go out there and put the show on that everybody wants to see.
John, I was thinking about your Big 12 draft rankings during the game that you did before the season. So for those that might have missed it, go over to Johnny's website, subscribe to it. It's a winner. He's got NFL draft rankings there. That's right, footballtakeover.com. I made it into a content piece over at Orangebloods talking about the Texas guys on that list. If he's that guy that we saw on Saturday, he's suddenly the number 3 quarterback in the draft. He's probably going in the top 10. That guy is that guy. What do we do with him now? Like, where and how much do we think that's who he is versus the median performance? Or, if you were going to revise the list right now, there's probably a world where he's at the top of the list. There's also probably a world where he's not at the top of the list because you're still waiting to see the consistency. So, in your mind as a draft prospect now, Saturday's game clearly helps him, but how much so?
I think it absolutely helps him. But you hit it, Jeff. It's the consistency thing. And that makes it tough. That's what can end up making it maddening in some sense. And that was kind of studying him last year. It's just like, I used some pretty bad words, which my people that know me know that I use way too often, but it was just frustrating. Like, dang it, the throw's there and you can make that throw. And then you step back a little bit and you think about, okay, last year Xavier Worthy was hurt, and the Athletic article comes out and it's like, holy cow, maybe he was hurt, and maybe people close to the program knew that, but a lot of people don't. And I know for me, like when I'm in my building in the NFL, I know when guys have been hurt, even though it doesn't show up on the injury report or whatever. So and it's not like I give them a pass, but you kind of go, okay, I get why maybe to this week or, the last couple of weeks haven't been great. The guy's playing with 2 busted up ankles and he's doing the best that he can. I think that Quinn, after he was hurt, I don't know that he was ever 100%. So you kind of factor that in. You factor in the changes he made. You factor in that game at time. Well, I want to see how he does against Tuscaloosa. What is he doing in Tuscaloosa against Alabama? Well, okay, he proved it. Well, then you want to be that guy who's like, nope, he hasn't proved it enough. That's hard. But when you went into the season, as I did, wanting to see not only high-level play, but see high-level play regularly, then I think it's going to take another week or two before I dive in. This is the interesting thing about, and I tell people this a lot of times about the draft. The book on Quinn Ewers is so far from being written. Like, I feel like we're halfway through the novel. I feel like this season, the rest of the season, is going to be a huge chunk of what is a part of his draft prospect novel. So I think natural ability, there's the top three, no doubt. The game in Alabama just says, okay, you got my attention. What are you going to do with it? And not just my attention, a lot of people's attention. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to handle that pressure? Now, played South Lake Carroll. He's a top recruit in the country. Like, the dude's dealt with pressure. He's been a quarterback at Texas now for 2 years. He's dealt with pressure. But now it's a matter of taking that pressure, letting it fuel him, and do it consistently. And if he is playing at this level consistently, Jeff, then there's no doubt he's the number one prospect in the Big 12. No doubt he plays that position, and he's playing at that level with that level of elite skill that he has. He'll be number one. But we need to see it for the next, couple of games. The great thing is that grades aren't due until the end of the 9 weeks. So I don't have to put the grade in. So what? He did really well. He did really well in the midterm. He did great on the midterm, and that's leading me in a particular direction. But, if he stops going to class, he misses the pop quiz, doesn't write the paper the way he's supposed to, well, by the end, that grade might turn from, what might be a 90 or 95, it might drop him down again. So to me, it's about consistency. I think he's done all the things he needed to do. Everything off the field, changing his diet, all of that. That's all professional attitude sort of stuff. The number of players that I see coming into the building, and one of my favorites is Jonathan Joseph. I don't think Jonathan Joseph ever ate a green in his life. He came into our building eating gummy bears and potato chips. And it wasn't until later in his career we finally was like, dang it, I wish I'd been doing this for a long time, learning how to eat, how to do things the right way. I feel like Quinn's learned that, and that's going to help him make the transition. Just go out there on Saturdays and do the things you can do. You don't have to be, Superman like you were in Tuscaloosa every week. Just do the things you're supposed to do. And I think the scouts are really going to love that. And if you do it consistently, they're really going to love you. And that's going to lead to a lot of bucks coming to your wallet next May.
John, last one from me. Give me a film freak that you're really into right now. Could be any team, any position, college, pro. Give us somebody you've watched on film lately where you might have either called someone or turned to someone or wrote it down and said, good God, that is a football player.
God, I feel like I'm pandering here. I really do. The guy that probably intrigues me more than anybody else, and number 0 is an absolute badass, man. And I had been hearing a lot about him, and I'm like, all right, 2 freshmen.
Just to be clear, the freshman defensive side. Okay, go ahead. Texas has 2 freaky zeros. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you're right. I'm talking. Well, Jatavian Sanders is pretty darn good too.
Yeah,
but I think 0 on the defensive side. Anthony Hill is. I'm watching. I get a chance to see some high school tape, not a lot, but I had heard about him. I just didn't have a chance to watch him. So I'm like, okay. And I see this blur come off the edge, and he just rips off the right side. I'm watching him with Andre Ware, and we're at dinner together, getting ready for our game against Baltimore. And I felt bad because I punched him in the arm. I look over as I see him rush, and I just went, I was like, Dre, did you see that bleep? And he's like, holy cow, who's that? And I was like, that's the freshman. That dude, that's a baller. And then he does it later in the game, too. And I thought, holy smokes. He really got my attention. Now, obviously, we have to wait a couple of years for the guy. But watching that was – I know there were a lot of Texas fans like, yeah, we've been watching for – okay. Yeah, I know you have. And as you should. You should be following the prospects that are coming to your program. I watched him on Saturday night and went, I need him on the field a lot more. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. And I also like the fact that Pete Kwiatkowski decided to do something that LSU won't do. LSU won't take Harold Perkins and just unleash him. They took Hill and said, yeah, well, go get him. Go get the quarterback. Why won't LSU do that with Harold Perkins? Because Texas is doing it with Hill. And I think it's what makes Perkins great. I think it's what is going to make Hill great. So I feel like I'm pandering in some sense, but that was one guy that I got done watching that night, and I just went, I want to see him again. The other guy that I'm probably crushing on a lot, and thankfully we don't need an offensive tackle here in Houston, but from Penn State, Olu Fashanu is to be 21 years old like he is, I think he just turned 21, and to seemingly play left tackle and make it look as easy as he does, I couldn't believe he didn't come out in the draft last year, because he would have been OT number 1. With a bullet. He was ridiculous. So I always try and crush on some of the guys in the trenches, but Hill the other night, you talk about snatch your attention. Holy cow. The other guy I was going to say, really liked watching, and unfortunately he got hurt in an A&M game, is Cam Kitchens from Miami. And then he goes down and he has a great game against A&M going, and then he's down on the field. And that was just such a gut punch, because I played safety, and I'm like, I never played it like that dude. That dude is all world playing safety. So those are a few of the guys. Thankfully, I don't have to study Hill in total and for a couple years, but I guarantee you I'll be watching him as much as possible, because I really love watching that guy play. And you talk about that level of athleticism on that side of the ball. Holy cow. And we talk about Ewers all we want. The reason that Texas absolutely whipped Alabama's ass, if I can say that, the defensive line just took over the game. They're still trying to block Murphy, and I don't think they can block him. Hill gets 2 sacks. I feel like the linebackers played smart. It was just an all-round effort against Alabama, and really all Alabama could do was create kind of off schedule. It should have been a game that Texas. It should have been a game actually that Texas won by. What did it end up? 34-21, whatever it was. It should have been a whole heck of a lot worse.
Yep, that was 34-24.
Yeah, 34-20, and it should have been worse. Really, if I'm being honest, it should have been a lot worse. But that's okay. You went over and you knocked off Alabama. Now the test is, what do you do next?
Yep.
John,
as the Jets say, now what?
Now what? Yeah, now what? Exactly.
John, we had people in the chat. There's the biggest compliment I can give you as we say goodbye. People in the chat, the Specs chat, are suggesting that I'm zoned out. And in reality, that's what listening looks like. And I realize that when Chad and I do a show, they don't often see a lot of that. There's just a whole lot of me interrupting Chad.
Yeah.
They finally saw me just listening to you, and they were like, Catch must be high. He's just sitting there. It's like,
yeah, John,
he's saying a lot of good stuff.
John, I would like to officially thank you for getting Catch to make that listening face. I can't get him to make the listening face.
There you go.
You know what? That's the best compliment. That's the best compliment you could have, man. When people are listening, paying attention, that's a good thing. So I appreciate you boys. Thank you very, very much. And to everybody out there listening, you see it there, footballtakeover.com, JH Football Takeover on YouTube. And again, I apologize for the volume, man. I just couldn't wake everybody up. But this week's a home game, so I'll film it in my studio and be as loud as possible before I go. And I won't do Texas or A&M every week, but when they have a big game, I definitely will.
Well, I noticed that Texas and Texas A&M moved the YouTube numbers.
Oh, yeah.
I was John's going to start doing A&M and Aggie and Longhorn videos every week, because whenever he does Wigman and Ewers, people pay attention.
Absolutely, man. Quarterbacks, I do one on a guard, and I'm like, this is awesome stuff, and it's like 100 views, and I hate it, because I love guards, and I love watching the trenches and things, but man, you just mentioned quarterback, and it's like flies to what. That's all. People want to know that stuff, but the comments have been awesome. People are like, man, I've never seen stuff like this. I'm like, it's what I've done. I should have been doing it a long time ago. So I just appreciate everybody being involved, and of course, Colorado pushes the needle too. So but those are those are the schools and those are the programs that people were talking about after the first few weeks. They wanted to know why, like what was going on, what was happening. It's like, all right, well, I'll show you. Here you go. Yeah. So hopefully people were able to digest that and come back for more.
Good.
Good stuff.
Johnny Football at footballtakeover.com and JH Football on YouTube. Johnny, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, boys. Appreciate you. Thank you.